Welcome to MedTech Disruptors. My name is David Philby. I'm the founder of Elevra Consulting. On this show, we interview commercial leaders who have taken a disruptive technology from early phase through to launch or even merger and acquisition. It's all about the journey, the highs and the lows, how to create new markets, what is high performance culture, the risks and rewards, and leading commercial teams in growth companies. We hope this gives you good insight and advice on how to advance your own career. Welcome, and I hope you enjoy the show. This week on the show, we're joined by Marcio Coelho, who was most recently the Chief Commercial Officer with CMR Surgical. We touched on the release of his book, Winning in Robotic Surgery, and got a deep dive into how to compete in a monopolized market such as surgical robotics. It's a fascinating conversation for any business leader or robotics enthusiast. So let's get into it. Welcome to the podcast, Marcio. I'm really excited to speak to you again. It was great chatting to you last time. I guess to make everybody jealous, where are you in the world?
I'm in Rio de Janeiro. Yes.
In summertime, weather must be amazing.
That's why you see the tan. Yeah, can't avoid it.
Especially compared to me and the contrast. That's not helpful whatsoever. But there we go.
Yeah.
I'm really excited to talk to you. I'm excited to talk about the journey with CMR in the surgical robotic space, and also the release of your upcoming book, which is absolutely amazing. When is the book due to be released?
I think another couple of weeks. I'm just finalizing the setup, the details of covers and formatting. The writing's done, everything's been reviewed, and now it's just final setup, and will be available through Amazon. Yeah,
fantastic.
It's an amazing thing that I discovered in this process that is relatively easy. Once you get the hard part in, which is having what to say and put it down on paper. Nowadays, publishing is not complicated. It's interesting. Yeah.
Fascinating. I haven't been through anything like that myself, so I'd love to learn more about it. But I'm excited for the book. I will absolutely read it. Winning in Robotic Surgery is the final title. Is that right?
Yes, that's the title. Correct. Yes. Mm-hmm.
I think we will absolutely touch on it today, because I think it's amazing, the book that you've written, and obviously the purpose of this podcast is to tell those stories of disruptive technologies and bringing them to market. So it sort of goes really in line. But to start with today, it'd be great if you could introduce yourself and sort of bring us up to speed on who you are and what you do.
Okay. Well, my name is Marcio Coelho. So I am born in Brazil, but live in many countries. I live in the US, in Europe, in Colombia, also in Latin America, in England, in France, within Europe, and worked for a medical device for the past little over 20 years. Becton Dixon, J&J, and lately CMR Surgical. And so I have a lengthy time and all have experience with medical devices in many geographies. And within those companies, I also, in all of them, I had global responsibilities. So I have seen it in action, not only in the geographies I was actually based, but also running business all over the world: China, Japan, Latin America, Europe, Africa, you name it, the US. So I think, and I was always fascinating for the latest and greatest. When robotics came, it was a very interesting thing. I was, at that time, I was working for J&J. I was president for J&J Medical Devices in Latin America. And then my boss's boss actually told me, hey, this is done for you, doing what you're doing now. We have a job for you in the US to help co-lead the platform that was developing the Verb robotic surgery program system, which was a partnership, a joint venture between J&J and Google. So I was in Brazil at that time running the company here. And then I moved to the US, and I was responsible for designing the go-to-market and basically the strategy of the business, while my co-lead companion was running all the details about R&D and setting up the actually design of the system. So I did this for a couple of years, and then at the end, with some technical issues, so it's been well known, with the verb design, the initial design, and was causing a massive delay. The company changed strategies. And at that time, I left J&J and I joined CMR. This is what I have done for the past 5 years, helping CMR to expand and introduce Versus all over the world. It's been an amazing experience, which is, those two experiences really make the basis of what I mentioned, what I write on my book. Okay, what it is to enter this space that had only one player for over 20 years, and when you're the second one, and we were the second one, and until today we're the second one in terms of volume surgeries and systems installed. I say we because I still think I'm still there, but I left them in November. Then that's when I kind of dedicated my time to focus on writing the book. Yeah.
It's an unbelievable story. It's made even more unbelievable because of what you just mentioned, the market you were up against and how stable and ingrained this major player was for so long. I mean, we're talking about a monopoly like Google search. It's so incomparable to so many markets around the world. So we're definitely going to get into that. But I think it would be a shame if we didn't touch on the book. So what's the book about, and why did you feel that you wanted to write it?
Yeah. So, I mean, when I joined CMR, even when I was at J&J, I started thinking, okay, we're going to bring up a robot to market. What is this market? And the market is what it is. You can't avoid and see intuitive. Everywhere, extremely successful. They had tremendous work done over the years. The technology is awesome. And they also, they fought all the barriers for acceptance of robotic surgery. And nowadays, I don't think there's anybody in the world that doesn't believe that this is the future and there's no way back. So they have tremendous credit for everything they have done. But when you're looking from outside and thinking, okay, how do I get in here and how do I make a business out of here that can grow, be sustainable, and bring returns to investors and improve actually outcomes for patients in the society? And then you need to start thinking about it. And so when I just started from the beginning, it was like, okay, how do I think about this? So I did a lot of research, different places. Of course, there was no playbook like this one that I'm writing. It is the first one for you to look into. Okay, what will really happen once I put something out there against such an entrenched competitor? And so I started looking for similar situations in different industries, in different markets, in different segments. There's nothing like that in medical device that I could find.
Yeah.
And so I accumulated a lot of knowledge over time. And even when I started the actual journey of selling this and running the company regionally and then globally, I was just kind of continuously researching and I accumulated a lot of information that I used for my daily work, just to think about strategically, operationally. And so once I left, first taking a few weeks just to do nothing, I started thinking, well, okay, there's a lot of knowledge. It's a very interesting case. And if I don't write it right away, it may risk of fading into my memory. I don't know exactly what I'm going to do next. I'm still enjoying the nice summer weather in the south. But it's, that was the idea. How can I make sure that this information that took so much work and sweat and tears to accumulate gets stored somewhere and can be shared with other people that may be starting the journey? And there's a lot of companies right now that are starting that journey. It's a significantly big market, growing at double-digit rates. It's what everybody wants. The incumbent has very high margins, so big size, high growth, high margins. That's what everybody wants. The question is, how can I take a knack of it, profitable piece of that pie? And that's what the book tries to help you, or the reader, to think about everything that you may face as you get into this journey and what options you may have based on my experience. It's basically the book written and based on my experience, my reflections, and my practical experience trying to compete and competing effectively and growing this platform to be the second platform, robotic platform in the world in a short period of time.
And Marcio, with the audience that you hope it helps the most, do you see it being a book that will be great for C-suite founders, senior executives of other robotics, startup companies, or do you see it being, or maybe both, do you see it being a great read for the sales guy on the road in front of clients who's having to convince them that their product is better or more suitable than the intuitive, which is that has that network effect of just being known as this great system? Or is it one or the other, or is it maybe both?
Yeah, I think that's a very good question. I think it's both, and let me explain why. The book's about strategy, okay? It's basically strategy, a little bit about what operationally could be wise things to do, but it's basically about strategy and how you can navigate the situation. And then, so I think the more senior you are, the better for you. I would say also investors, either venture capitalists or private equity, whoever you are, you're thinking about investing in this space. They help you to understand the challenges and what type of strategic choices need to be made. So I think for everybody. But if you look at the person that's going to be out there, and I said it's a good question because the salesperson that works on this space, it has to have good strategic thinking because it's a very long sales cycles over a year usually. And it's going to require everything you have, not only relationships, not only being organized and structured, but being resilient and really try to understand on that particular situation, how do you apply the right strategy, what the product you have, how does it compare, what's your value proposition, how it differentiates, and then understanding the book gives you that piece, the perception of other stakeholders that will make decisions on your purchase to figure out how you adapt your communication and you navigate this long sales process. So I think it helps everybody, and it was written in a very easy way to read, so everybody can understand. Even, some people that I gave it to read the final draft before that were completely out of this space, they said, even though I'm not from the space, I understand it. So that was one of my goals. I want to be very deep in terms of information, but easy to understand. So everybody can just read it and take something out of it. Okay. Of course, the more sophisticated you are, you're going to read more into it. If you're a person of experience in medical devices, you're going to, of course, going to have a much deeper understanding what I'm talking about versus somebody that's going to look outside and think, oh, this all makes sense. But in practice, I don't really know how it plays. So yes, I think it has something for everybody, but mostly target for the highest level, on the strategic level of business.
That makes sense. I'm glad you're saying it's easily readable. That suits me. So I'm fascinated to read it from a business strategy sense, right? Because I'm not a surgeon and I've never sold med devices myself. So being able to understand how a business breaks into a market that is so stable is going to be really fascinating. I'm going to be super interested to read that perspective in it, Well, I'm looking forward to it. So let's go into your time with CMR Surgical. It'd be great to understand when you joined the company, what your role was, how big the company was, what had they brought to market at that point, what was the sort of current situation, and then we can sort of talk through how it evolved and how your role evolved and where was CMR last year when you eventually left.
Yeah, so maybe I'll go one little step behind before I got in. So is that finishing my time at the Verb Surgical, because remember, I was the commercial guy. The guy I was actually hiring people, already had a 10-people team on my team when the company decided to drop the platform and go for the Oris acquisition and then navigate in a different direction. Basically, all of a sudden, I had no more to do because I had designed the go-to-market and I had started building the structure, and all of a sudden we got some bad news that things were going to change. So that's when I left. By the time I left, a good friend of mine, which was a surgeon from South Korea, actually, we had dinner, and then he told me, hey, if you want to stay in robotics, you should look into CMR Surgical. I think they are the next thing coming up that will actually be capable of doing what Intuitive does. So I knew about CMR Surgical, didn't have much connections there at that time. So I wrote a message on LinkedIn to Martin Frost, which was the CEO at that time. I explained him who I was and what was happening and that I was interested in working out with him. And then a few months later, I joined the company initially as a consultant, a little different type of a consultant. I was not just writing a plan, but I was actually hired to build the organization in Latin America. They didn't have anything here. I think it was about 8 months after their first in humans case, or first, I'm pretty sure. The company was around, I think at that time, around 400 employees. And I don't really remember right now how many systems we have installed, but I would bet it was probably around 20 or 30, mostly in India. That's where we started, where we did some of our initial clinical trials for gaining the CE approval. And so I was actually a hired executive. So I moved in from this big company and I came up to say, okay, now I need to build a company from scratch. There was nothing. There was no legal entity. Of course, no regulatory approval, no nothing. So I went on to do that together with my partner, Marcio Coelho, which I brought into this journey with me from the beginning. And then we work together as a company, as a consulting company. And we designed the company. We said, okay, what are we going to do in Latin America? How are we going to go to market? What do we need? And then it was everything. So it was interesting at that time because I had a conversation with Marty one day and I said, okay, first thing you need to do is erase everything we know about everything. Because first of all, we don't work. Marty also left the J&J. He was not in the robotic area, but he also left J&J. He was running a big job in Latin America. And then, so we said, you're going to have to start a company from scratch. So we need to think different. And then, so that's what we did. We did a plan to start a company from scratch. We designed the company to be very structured from the beginning, let's call it this way. Not heavy, but processes in place, everything very clear. And we got some amazing results. So I think we got the first country we got in was Brazil. We got in first with the first system in Chile because there's no regulatory approval. Right after that, we got approval from Anvisa in Brazil. We got it in record time, like 6 months. And I attribute that to that mentality of being very straightforward. We got it faster than Medtronic did at that time. We got a broader indications than they did, just because being close to the process and being senior and close, not in a matrix that a million people underneath to make decisions, I think we made everything a lot faster. So we built a company, and today, I think they closed right after I finished. There's a few left, end of last year. I think they closed after 2.5 years from the first surgical case with close to 20 platforms across Latin America and into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 countries, which is not bad. So I think for 2 years it was fast, and we got a tremendous group of people working with us. Very lean, not a lot of people, but really done what we needed. Excellent customer service. Anyway, so that's a short story. And then after that initial phase of building the region in Latin America, I was invited to join Supra team, which was the other CEO that came up later, as Chief Commercial Officer, which I did it for some time. Later, I switched with Max, which is today the CEO, that he became the Chief Commercial Officer. I flipped to be Chief Marketing Officer and doing dual role as running Latin America. Mario decided to leave the company. So I was helping transitioning to the new general manager for Latin America, was doing both jobs, and then I left at the end of last year. So that's kind of a summary of the journey. So as I mentioned, so I saw Latin America in that, but also as chief commercial officer and chief marketing officer, I was dealing with all the regions and working on supporting organization and the growth of the company all over the world.
Fascinating. So, just so I understand, when you went to Latin America as a company and you were leading that, was there much competition already in place in Latin America in many of these countries? What were you sort of up against, in Chile and Brazil when you went there?
Yes. I mean, in Brazil, Intuitive already had around 100 systems installed in all major institutions and things. In Chile, they had around 20 systems installed, a smaller country. And so they were everything.
Yeah.
They had hundreds of surgeons trained in both countries. So people talk about robotics, that's what everybody knew. And so Intuitive was very, very, very strong already. Operating through distributors, but that still until today, but very strong. Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. With your emphasis on not necessarily running lean, but it sounded like you were leading the approvals process and getting the go-to-market strategy. Everything was going through you, which allowed you to be more efficient because of your experience in the seniority and your understanding of how you could get things done. Do you think that because of what you had brought to the table by taking responsibility and leading and owning those things for yourself rather than, immediately building a team, delegating, bringing in junior people like that, do you think that is then why CMR wanted you to step up into these more global roles? Because it wasn't just a matter of your experience, it's also that you'd got in and done things from the ground up in new regions and stuff like that. Do you think that was really important to the company when they elevated you into them roles?
Yes, there's two elements to this. I think, to the point that, when you're getting something like this, it's a new space that nobody has much of a knowledge. You need to be close to the ground to listen, to understand it, to help the team. But one thing that I disagree with your comment is that we built a great team from the beginning, very high levels of delegation. And they knew what to do. They all support each other, playing as a team, as they did until today, and they continue doing it. It's a great, great, great team. Some people we recruited from Intuitive, some people that we knew, Mario and myself from J&J, and some other people from the rest of the industry, but mostly the Intuitive people and J&J people that joined us in the beginning, which are people that have good experience, practical experience, and that capability of working in teams. So basically, one of the reasons I want to say there's 2 points. One is that being out there on the trenches, understanding, driving, influencing, especially in the very beginning, you're talking about regulatory. Regulatory is the first thing. If you can't operate, you can't sell anything.
Yeah.
So there was a very small team, and then I was very directly involved. But very soon after, the team built up, and then it started flying by themselves. And that allowed also the company to say, okay, you can get out of that because the operation is stable, and you can move up. But yes, I think any company getting into the space, if the senior executives are not willing to, get a little bit in the mud and understanding. And I like to go on the first installations, watch the first cases, being there all day and, supporting the team when everybody can be stressed. I really enjoy that, not only to support the team, to make them feel more confident on the firsts, but also for me to understand what it takes to install a robot and do first cases, what's happening and what's the training of the surgeons, being with them to see, okay, what does it really mean for you to navigate from being an expert on a Da Vinci to become an expert on those. So all those things are invaluable because you're in the beginning. You need to learn the business, So I think this is important. Nobody comes to this business with experience. So you're going to have to get out there and see it.
So you had to be on the front line with your team to to gain that appreciation for how you were going to win and how you're going to succeed. You mentioned you brought in a few people from Intuitive and a few people from J&J, which obviously you had strong ties to. Did everybody in that team that you initially built in LATAM have robotics experience, or was there people coming in that were non-robotics but were just the right characters and personalities that you could rely on, that you knew would go further than someone who, say, had robotics experience but actually was quite protected by the organization they were coming from?
Yeah. So, I mean, depending on what type of function, there are different things. Like, think about our Eric, or head of regulatory in LATAM. He's never had an experience robotic, but is a very pragmatic regulatory person. So that helps a lot, because sometimes I see in regulatory the issues are people not very pragmatic, and you have to be very. And he's a great professional. He's been helping us tremendously. And then we brought an engineer to head our service department, was a senior engineer at J, and come up to work with us. Never did robotics in his life, but very structured, strong leader, strong initiative. So those are personality traits that are important. And of course, we trained him in robotics, the company did. And if you look about the salespeople, the interesting thing about, for us and for everybody trying to get into this space, is that nobody knows how to compete against Intuitive unless you've done it, okay? And even if you say, oh, I'm not really competing against Intuitive, yeah, okay. Yeah, okay, you're going to go into, I don't know, into the lion's den, and you're not going to meet the lion to go, hey, I'm not here. Pretend I'm not here. You just keep doing your stuff and I will walk through.
Yeah.
Okay, well, you can't do that. So nobody knows what to do. So hiring people from Intuitive, initially we hired people that helped us with implementation, and some very good people that helps us with training and implementation, that help to communicate and say, okay, this is what you used to do on a Da Vinci system, and now and versus it's a little different, that you need to think about this way. So that helps tremendously on this, because we needed to help that knowledge. Right. We also hired engineers underneath that were well-versed in robotic systems, which made their learning curve for technical service faster. Okay, so those were the main hires. And I hired some salespeople also from Intuitive. Some of them worked better, some of them didn't. But you think about, if you're an Intuitive rep, you're used to go out there and people call you and say, hey, I want a robot. And you say, okay, this is the price. When do you need it? And then that's it. And usually, up to recently, now they've flexed out a little bit more. There was no even discussion. This is how to do. If you want to call me back, otherwise, I don't need you. And nowadays, of course, because we're there, because competition is coming, they change their attitude a lot and be more flexible. But that used to be the way. So when you go, if you get the person like that, move them across, and you say, now you're going to need to fight the big guy across the street. We have 5 reps. They have 30, 50, 100, and you still need to sell. You need to figure that out. A lot of people can't do it. Okay.
Yeah.
And so you need a certain profile. You need people that have a resilience to go and fight, and not only have the relationship, the strategic thinking, that ability to stay on the target, stay on focus for long periods of times. And that's not easy. So it's a personality trait more than the experience that we look for on those roles. Some people do that very well, and some people just can't. They just say, hey, I'm wasting my time here. I've worked for 7 months here, 8 months. I haven't sold anything. I can't do this. I walk away. Well, I mean, if your average sales cycle is 1 year, you need to be ready to sell nothing for a year and a half until you get the first one. So, yeah.
It's fascinating. So the ability to attract great talent, did you find that difficult in that initial region? Because if you're talking to somebody from Intuitive, I assume there's a level of, unless they have a personal reason to leave, that they're not happy or something's gone wrong for them, convincing them to come to a smaller and then compete with and they're going to know how well they're ingrained they are. Did you find talent attraction difficult in the region to go up against Intuitive, to take people from them, or even if Intuitive were also potentially speaking to the same candidates?
Yeah, there's a few things. And things change a lot since the beginning, and a different things in different countries. Okay, so usually easier when we're in a country which Intuitive is represented through a distributor. Because usually distributor benefits are not as good as the industry, salaries are not as high. So you can come in as we did with a good package, benefits and salaries that were attractive. So that's one thing. Basically, everybody wants to do that. And then you come in. The other thing is when we started, if you go back 5 years ago, there was this big sense that everybody was talking, oh, I can't stand Intuitive. They're arrogant. We need another company. We need something else. So when we came to market at that time, there's a lot of people thinking, okay, whenever the second company comes, everybody's going to drop Intuitive because nobody can stand them because they're so arrogant.
Yeah.
But what happened is that, of course, being a great company that Intuitive is, which they are, it's amazing. And really always been amazed by them. And they just go out there and change completely. Okay, so just became a friendly company and became flexible on their commercial terms. They did everything, okay, that they were not doing just 6 months before. So for the people coming into, so at that time, people looking into and say, oh, the second company, by the way, it's small. You don't need to break walls. You don't need to, get a crane to put this thing on my third floor of my buildings. I don't need a special electric line. So some of the sales reps said, hey, this is going to catch like fire. And that's a little bit what I talk about the book. And I remember I interviewed somebody for a senior marketing role. And then this person, I asked her, so what do you think it takes? How do you see the market? What do you see CMR playing here? And she played this whole story about, oh yes, nobody can stand Intuitive. You're going to come, you're going to do this and do that. And I told her after 4 years of experience, and I said, very good thinking. I actually thought exactly like you 5 years ago or 4 years ago. But it's not really true. The practice is a little different. There's nothing wrong with your thinking. You just, your strategy is very logical. Yeah. But the reality is a little different. So what happens is that people had that belief that the second would just knock them down because everybody was tired. And I heard it myself firsthand all over the world when I worked in Japan, in Singapore, everywhere, Middle East, Latin America, North America, the whole of Europe. Everybody used to say the same thing. And nowadays, not many people say this anymore, okay, because they changed. And they're very agile to do that. For a big company, they're amazingly agile.
Yeah, fair play. The sign of every great company that doesn't get stuck in their ways. Talk to me a bit about the culture that you created along the way, and what was important for the CMR culture to achieve the success that it achieved whilst you were there.
I think there's one of the things that I loved about CMR was the much leaner and less hierarchical and matrixed as the company came before. So it was very easy to speak your mind and very, very open up in doing what you're doing. When I was running Latin America, I had total freedom of operation. Really, there was 100% trust. We worked with it. So we could move tremendously fast. Okay, we just got the support we needed. They would say, okay, trust me, this is how it works here. And we got that. Okay, so that allowed us to build a business very quickly and very fast. And I'd say also when I was in a global position, you could see this very quick conversation. You just go across the street. I talk to the CFO. I talk to the CEO. I go here, Chief Operating Officer. We need to close a deal. We're gonna start a new country. You're gonna do this. You're gonna do that. And everything is very fast and agile. I think this is very critical for the culture of being small, everybody together, everybody vested in the success of the company. Like personal agendas are not a big thing. So that helps. And you're going to need everything it takes, okay? Being stuck into many big, complicated matrix and political discussions and egos and stuff. So that's what my message to the big strategics on this. If you can carve a space for your robotic unit to be more independent, your chances of success are going to be greater. First of all, everybody will want to jump the boat and come into the latest and greatest with robots. And as I mentioned before, not all sales reps have the mentality, have what it takes to succeed in robotics. They may be excellent, outstanding President's Club winners on their laparoscopic business, and they may fail in robotics just because it's a different animal, requires some different skills, different personality. So I think that the big thing is this. In the Latin America organization specifically, I think from the beginning there is extremely more, even more than everywhere else that I've seen within the company, this collaborative culture of team. We have our weekly meeting that all the heads of the different functions sit together. We know exactly what everybody's doing, which installations are coming up, and then any technical issues, any glitches, which I didn't have many, to tell you the truth. Yeah. And then everything is clear. It's clear communication. Once a week, I need a robot delivered X date, operations on the table, engineering is on the table, implementations on the table. Everything is aligned, and we make a very detailed plan, and everybody follows up every week what needs to do, what is the critical path. We know when we need to act. And the team still uses this tool until today, and that helps the operations to stay very simple and streamlined. We don't spend a lot of time in meetings discussing nonsensical things. There are ethical tactical plans of execution, and everybody is committed to each other. So it is our installation as a team installation. It's not the rep that runs that account. It's not, the operations guys, they actually deliver. No, it's our installation. So we are all there for that. We all cheer together when things happen, and it did happen on time. I would say 99% of the time, just because of very, very strong planning culture. Planning on the details, make sure things get executed properly.
One of the beautiful things about startups is when you have that first win or them early wins, and obviously the LATAM business, I'm sure, would have felt like a startup in its own right. The feeling that everybody's in it together, it means so much more than any milestone that could ever be achieved in a big corp, right? It's one of the most rewarding feelings, and however the company then acts to recognize that and celebrate is that's why people go to smaller companies to really feel like they've got skin in the game, they're part of it, and it's amazing. You've also mentioned that that's actually one of the reasons that you were able to succeed in the marketplace, because you could be more agile and quicker with less red tape and opinions that needed to be, or approvals that needed to be gathered to be flexible. Do you feel CMR, and not to talk ill of them or anything like that, but do you feel like there's a challenge that to keep that sort of culture going with scale? If CMR go from strength to strength to strength, does the inevitable big corp culture kick in at some point that makes things tougher to compete for them?
I think it's up to the CEO to set the tone. I think the same way that Intuitive have been amazingly able to be flexible and empower people, because I have seen it firsthand, I think CMR has all the potential to do it. So, and it's doing actually. So I think the challenge may come in the future. Not an easy task, because at the end of the day, we usually have, of course, you have all your constituents, have the whole, everybody who works on the company has an opinion and a way to do it. Then you have the leadership team, and then you have the board, and then you have the investors. And in the case of CMR, we have very active and engaged investors. And it takes time and leadership to keep everybody online, okay? And the trust is a big thing on this space. So people are going to feel, not only, but especially my experience, okay, in this robotic challenge, Because if you get into a new space and which has such a strong player with such strong capability, I mean, multiples of 10, the number of people they have on the ground, multiples of hundreds, thousands maybe, on the number of systems they sell per year, thousands, but hundreds of the systems they sell per year, which gives them, procurement capabilities that you won't have, and all those things. It makes very hard to forecast. So I think the investors and the board have a very, very important role to understand where you're getting into. It's not going to be clear cut. You're not going to say, okay, I'm going to place 100 systems and I'm actually going to do 100 systems. It's a very big struggle when I was CCO because, I mean, at the end of the day, the buck ended on my end. Okay, are you going to install it or not install it? And we're just going all over the world like crazy and working on deals and to be just snapped out of our hands the last minute by Intuitive that just came in off, throw a curveball on us and stole the account at the last minute. All those things happening all the time, which is okay. It's normal, but it's more complicated when you have small numbers and you're trying to grow. And then, of course, the investors have their mentality. Okay, I have an exit planning in mind and a certain timeline for things to happen. And you have to understand when you get into such a difficult fight, that resilience that's expected from the sales rep is same resilience is expected from the investors. Okay, if you are into this, if you get into robotics, don't expect a quick win. I mean, if you got into this play against such an entrenched company, if you expect a quick win on that, I'm sorry for you. I mean, you maybe should not be an investor, should be doing something else. I'm sorry. But this is it. You need to think about it and be realistic, okay? Because then the risk is that if this alignment doesn't happen, you create additional stress that is unnecessary, or you just invest your money in the wrong directions. And as for any startups, cash is king. So you need to keep an eye on that cash and invest on the right spot. I mean, in a space, too, if you're going to play and get a space on here, you have to do a lot of things right. And this alignment of those constituents that we are all the same thing, that our team in the local weekly meeting, operational, this is our business, this is our deal, this is our installation, we're going to make it happen, and we're all working for it, has to go all the way up to the top. Okay, they need to understand they are in the game too. You decided to put your money in it, you are in it. And you have to not just be pushing blaming games. Okay, oh, you didn't do it. Oh, I mean, try it, And I think in CMR, we had some of the best people that I have met ever in my career, as good as any, okay, or better in some cases. And this is difficult, okay? So people say it's easy. You're going to get there on the cheap, you'll love. Okay, you're going to take a lot of money, a lot of energy, and everything you got.
Yeah, 100%. Those cultures where you're having to go up against such an established competitor can often be the reason why great cultures are formed, right? Because you need to all feel like you're in the fight together, but also it's not good enough to be quite resilient or have a good culture. You need to have great culture. You need to have the most resilience. You need to be super disciplined, and anything that's just 7 or 8 out of 10 just doesn't cut it. And it sounds like from everything you've said that CMR did incredibly well to foster that. What did the company look like at the time of leaving for you last year in terms of the achievement size and scale that you had gone to?
Yeah, so by the time I left, we had around 160 systems installed all over the world on all continents. I mean, everything, Australia, Africa, Asia, and Middle East, Europe, and just missing US because this FDA approval happened towards the end of last year. So, I mean, I think it's amazing what's being done, not without a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. Over 17,000 procedures performed across pretty much everything you want to do, soft tissue surgery, with the exception of heart surgery, which we don't have clearance, in pediatrics, which we started doing some studies in Europe. And head and neck, we also started doing so. But pretty much all the things that are very complex have been done. So I think extremely successful clinically, surgically. I mean, Mark Slack, our head of medical, and one of the founders, great leader, great person, pushing this, and especially safe. We never had any issue. Never. Intuitive, in the beginning, the first case back there 20 years ago, they did have some very difficult problems. We didn't. Of course, we came in later. We learned a lot from their journey. But basically, patient safety was first and foremost, has always been, and we haven't had any problems. We always slept well on that. Excellent training programs, and the system actually performs very well. It's been a journey, of course. In the beginning, there were some glitches, but none of the glitches were safety concerns. But just, well, this could be better. This couldn't help me much here. And then we go fine-tuning, which is, if anybody thinks that you're going to design a robotic system in the lab and you're going to do your first case and it's going to work perfect, wake up. That's not like this. It never happens. So I think this is the basic journey. But I think that the company achieved, which is the number 2, I think the third company was Medtronic, I think installed with all its mighty, installed around 80 or 90 systems by the time I left, all over the world, and a number of procedures much less than what we've done. So I think from a small company coming out of Cambridge in the UK, growing on its own, private investors, some institutional investors, growing investor base as it goes, I think it was amazing, really amazing, really impressive what they have been able to achieve technically and as a business.
Yeah, unbelievable. And now you mentioned the USA. That feels like the lion's den that you mentioned earlier.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
everything's going to have to be perfect to make strides in the US, I'm sure.
Yeah. So that's a challenge that's coming up for next for the company.
Yeah.
Not only, I mean, they're going to challenge everything because, of course, being their house and being as everything is, where every single surgeon coming out of medical school already knows how to use a Da Vinci in the US.
Yeah, absolutely.
It is what it is. And pretty much almost every hospital that would like to have a system already have. They modified from, that's what I mean, things changed tremendously. Like 5 years ago, you had to go out and shed, $2-3 million to buy a Da Vinci system. Now you rent it, you pay as you go. I mean, so if you want to have a system, you have a system. So they really reduced the barriers. So you have to understand, they reach the critical mass of the installed system. The most of your revenue comes from recurring revenue. And then what you want is to increase that base. So you're less concerned about the upfront cash. Which is a difference from the newcomer, because you need cash, because you're burning cash like crazy.
Yeah.
So you actually need to sell your systems and put cash in the house as soon as possible.
Yeah.
Until you get some installed base that the recurring revenue start kicking in. So it's another thing that I mentioned in the book about, think about what it needs to win and against who you're going to win. But talking about the US, I think even more than everywhere else in the world, strategy is king and being very disciplined about what you want to do. One thing that we have learned is that not every customer that wants to buy your system or says they want to buy your system really want to buy your system. And you need to understand why they want to talk to you. Some people just want to talk to you because they want to use you as a leverage to get more discounts from Intuitive. And you're going to waste a lot of time just on that conversation. So you need to walk away. So understanding how the market segments and how you position yourself on space that your unique technical capabilities will make a better solution for the account for what they are trying to do. And that's going to be, there's no magic recipe for this. Every company is going to have to think. I think the book is going to help you to think about what are the elements that you need to evaluate your value proposition to win in the segment that your value proposition were designed to deliver value. Okay? So, but I think the segmentation and targeting is critical. You should try to go, head on everywhere on the places where Intuitive have 15, 16 systems, all the surgeons trained, and then you're going to think, hey, now oh, that's cool, we got a new toy, and everybody's going to jump in and start doing thousands of surgeries. Or yeah, good luck's not going to happen. So yeah, so it is challenging market, but on the other hand, it's very big. There are segments of the market where you can have a chance, depending on, of course, as I mentioned, the design of your system. That's why I'm not going to say which segment you're going to win there, because of course, depending on how you design your system, you're going to have better chances to win. But one thing I can say, my personal opinion, that people are going out there thinking they're going to win this game on price. Good luck. See you in the graveyard in a few years. You will not. You're never going to have reach scale enough to get costs below intuitive. So you cannot be a cost leader. There's no such a thing as price leader. You're the cost leader, or if you're going to go that way, you need to be a cost leader. Think about these guys that pumping out thousands of machines per year, and you're going to be pumping out 5, 10 dozen. Okay?
Yeah.
How are you going to get scale and cost? No way. So forget about this. You either have a technology that adds value, then you can carve a niche that you can win on that space and build a beachhead and then grow from there. Otherwise, you're going to burn a lot of cash, and investors are going to be very disappointed with you over time.
Yeah, 100%. With the you mentioned a couple of the lessons learned. What do you think are the greatest takeaways and well, still lessons learned, but the as a commercial executive, how you approach things, and in the future, in your future roles, what do you think the last 5 years have really taught you about how you now approach commercial strategy? What are the things that you will bring into whatever you do next?
So I think the first one is kind of obvious, but I think I want to maybe reach it to a different angle. I think people need to think that robotics here to stay for the next 100 and 200 years. You're going to be here. You're going to be more sophisticated over time, and the market's going to be more segmented, more players, and more different technologies solving very specific problems. That will happen. So if you are an investor, and that's why they're different angle, what you need to think about is that what is it that you're trying to do? Okay, you're trying to cash out on a quick, 5-year exit, 3-year exit, and put it out there and make a lot of money.
Mm.
You're going to have to look at the technology that you're supporting very closely and how much of disruptive is this technology. Okay, is it the ChatGPT kind of things that goes out? And everybody uses ChatGPT for search, so let's take even a knack on the Google business from that and call it this way for search, and people try to understand things. Or is it something that's just incremental? And then this is going to help you understand, okay, how quick is this going to come? Just by the fact you jump into this bandwagon doesn't mean you're going to be able to win in the short term. It's very upfront cost intensive. Not only the technology to develop, you're going to have to develop, hardware, software, instruments. The other element that's not that easy, develop an instrument that's manually handled, what you know about this, versus developing a system that's going to be handled by software. I'd say you basically throw in the trash 70% what you know about doing an instrument, and then you start, because it is different. Okay, how do you use the hardware software combination to provide that experience on the surgeon hand, that sensitivity that it needs to do some very delicate movements? And that's not the same. So what you learn from a mechanical instrument goes just some not too far. Okay, call it this way. So I think that the first learning is this: the place is going to be here, but you need to be thinking on the long term, not a short flip, make my money and walk away from it. So that there's a profile of investor for that. And know that you're going to put a lot of cash into it, and you have to be very smart about this. I think if you compare, what else can I say? The cultural elements, I think, was a big aha that we learned over time. That the fact that people say all the time, oh, it's only 5%, 7%, 8%, people have different numbers, penetrated, so therefore there's 90% of the market to go out to be taken. I mean, that's a kind of a fallacy. Because even though it's true, as I said, it's going to be here for that, and eventually all surgeries are going to be robotics, doesn't mean you're going to take it, okay? Who's going to take it? The one that's more prepared. And then goes back to the book, which is it's a network effect monopoly. So the more surgeries you do, the more surgeons are trained, the more you sell. And this goes, as a flywheel. It goes getting better and better. If you're going to break, it's the same thing as Google. The more search goes on, the more smarter you get, the better results it gives, and so on. And then somebody needs to come up with a very different way of doing things, such as ChatGPT, and then, Deep Search. What's the name of the company? Deep Search.
Deep Search.
They came in, the Chinese one, and they came in and figured out a way of doing it cheaper and somehow faster. And I haven't tried because I tried to get in, and they said the waiting line to use it, and I'm not very interested in. Sorry, but to say into, I use ChatGPT a lot, and I love it, and
I do as well. Yeah,
and so I use that. But I mean, that's possible to disrupt. But then you need to really, when you're looking into it, you need to think, okay, I got it. Any surgery is a lot more difficult. Okay, another high is that surgeons, for good reasons, they don't adopt technology like this. I'm going to try them, start using it tomorrow. Because there's lives on the line. There's a learning curve. It's very complex what they do. And I have a tremendous appreciation for what the surgeons do. Lots of friends, and this is one of the reasons I love the space, is the interactions with surgeons, which are always enriching. But they don't take things lightly. So it will take time. So you need to really have a strong value proposition, really come in and solving a problem that have not been solved by intuitive if you want to take a space here. So try to make it simple. So you're going to have to be there in the long term, have a lot of cash to put up front. Going to have to build a culture that's transparent and people can talk. So things can move faster as opposed to big matrix and complications. And the last one, maybe the first one, you need to have a technology that is actually disruptive and not just simply being a me too. Okay, I can do everything that intuitive does, so I buy intuitive. Okay, nowadays the prices, as I mentioned before, is not a factor in most markets in the world.
Yeah, it's a fascinating market landscape. There really is nothing like it. Well, from what I know, I try and rack my brains, and I always say to be a great recruiter, you have to at least be a good economist. So try and stay up to touch with as many markets as possible. And I just can't think of anything that relates to this space and what Intuitive have done. So it's absolutely fascinating. Marcio, it's been great to talk to you. I don't know if you wanted to add anything before we wrap this up.
Well, maybe as a salesperson, which I am, to say, hey, keep an eye on the book. It's coming out shortly, and it's going to help you save a lot of time if you read it patiently, reflectively. It's a very practical book, and I wish you all the best, okay, in this journey. And remember, resilience. If you decide to get into this game to play, resilience is the name of the game. You're going to have to stay on it for some time and use everything it takes. As I said before, when I joined CMR, and I said they're going to have to drop pretty much everything I knew about how to succeed working on a big corporation and change your ship and open mind, to create the future, because otherwise it's going to be very difficult. Best
100%. Thank you for that, Marcio. Great to talk to you again. Good luck with the book. I'm sure it will be a fantastic success. I'm still looking forward to my signed copy.
Yes,
when you're ready, and 100% looking forward to reading it. But great to talk to you again.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thanks for listening to the show. I hope it was insightful and inspiring. This podcast is brought to you by Elevra Consulting. We are a commercially focused recruitment agency focused on medtech and life sciences. If we can help you in your job search, or if you're hiring commercial talent, please reach out to me on LinkedIn, David Philby, or at our website, elevraconsulting.com. Thanks again.